Hello, me homies. This is Alex again with Formidable Felons, and today I'm here to share with you my advocacy project for my bachelor's program class, case management and problem solving. I'm getting my bachelor's in human services, and this is one of our projects that we had to do. Today, the assignment is going to be on the Women of Lowell Correctional Institution, which you guys know plenty much about. This is just going to be a small, about 15-minute video, hopefully, about what we can do to try and help them. So, who are the women of Lowell C.I? In today's country, we have a consistent belief that if you do the crime, you should do the time. Justice is then served, right? What if I told you the time goes beyond sentencing for some girls in our prison systems, particularly at Lowell C.I, where individuals are raped, beaten, sodomized, and choked in what the Florida Department of Justice calls a cesspool of sexual abuse by staff? A staff which a former warden claims is at least 40% corrupt, and inmates are punished for reporting abuse. So why should you care? Unfortunate circumstances sometimes result in jail time. As a result of sharing my prison story, I've come to the conclusion that many people have served time or know someone that is close to them that has. There's violence in both men and women's prisons that are usually kept out of the public eye. The person on the receiving end of this violence could be someone you love. Not only that, but there are constitutional rights being violated year after year in this women's prison specifically. A crazy fact, 6.5 million Americans have an immediate family member currently incarcerated in jail or prison. This is according to the Equal Justice Initiative in 2018. And this is a personal picture of my mother and I when I was at Lowell C.I. So we have some problems to ensure safety and well-being for the girls here. And let me just note first, these are some of the problems that they face. Female inmates are forced into prostitution at Florida's most notorious prison in exchange for basic amenities. That's what the prosecutor claims. And this is by the Daily Mail and most likely gathered from the Miami Herald report. So that's mentioned that Lowell Prison in Florida is the country's largest female prison. It was the focus of an FDC report into substandard prisons in 2006. Hundreds of inmates have complained about sexual misconduct. A prosecutor said he thinks the complaints are well-founded. And women claim they are forced into sex in exchange for cigarettes and cash. So these are obviously very, very big issues. So what we need to focus on are the consensual and non-consensual relationships, the punishment for reporting abuse, the incomplete investigations and misinformation, and repercussions for staff that are involved. If you follow my channel, you know that there's a lot of these investigations. They end up claimed unsubstantiated just because people don't follow up through their investigations, whether it be through documentation, through interviews with the victim or the perpetrator, or any possible witnesses around. People just don't feel like doing the paperwork, and often there's people that just stop showing up to work, so then they get fired for that. So these are the things that end up hindering having a complete investigation and puts these girls in danger. So is it important that the public know about what happens to criminals after sentencing? So here on the right, you will see the investigation of Lowell Correctional Institution, Florida's Department of Corrections. This is what I did, my 4-hour narration of the 36-page investigation of the 8th Amendment violations that go on at Lowell. So the general public is minimally aware of what goes on behind the closed doors of our prisons. Out of sight, out of mind is what they say. At Lowell Correctional Institution, women can't speak for themselves when they are abused for reporting abuse. Fortunately, the Department of Justice filed a 36-page investigation into the 8th Amendment violations taking place there, classifying their sexual abuse and discernment of discipline as cruel and unusual punishment. So here we have the history of abuse at Lowell, and we have allegations of sexual victimization reported by federal and state prison authorities by type of victimization. This is a 2011 pre-audit report that I found online. History of abuse at Lowell C.I. Lowell is the oldest women's prison in Florida, and it has a violent history of unethical behavior between staff and inmates. A former Martin, Daddy Martinez, was fired for inappropriate relationship with inmates. The stories from lifers on the yard will tell you the history of staff sexual abuse against inmates. To combat this behavior, the PREA Act, or the Prison Rape Elimination Act, was passed in 2003 and requires the Bureau of Justice Statistics, BJS, to monitor prison rape statistics on a yearly basis. Statistics reaching as far back as 2009 to 2011 see Florida as one of 6 states that had over 100 states of staff on inmate sexual violence. Only 4 of these were substantiated. It is clear that there may be a severe problem being overlooked. At Lowell Correctional Institution, the OIG has noted one reason for this disparity: falsifying and not even completing investigations, which is what I was mentioning before. So, what do our incarcerated women need from us? And this picture over here is from a Change Comes Now protest from Miss Deborah. And this is Miss Dawn Posey. And she is standing up for the inmates as well at one of their protests. So, our girls need officer accountability. They need outside legislative representation, completion of investigations with OIG recommendations, and public outreach. With the OIG recommendations, they often put girls into administrative confinement and say per OIG, meaning like it's standard for them to put them into administrative confinement. But there's no recollection, there's no data saying that the OIG actually said that. They just do it as a part of standard procedure, and it ends up putting these girls in dangerous positions. And I've mentioned previously that these girls have visitations with their family once in a while. They'll end up suffering themselves so that they can be with their family. They don't want to end up going to administrative confinement under investigation just for it to end up finding out it's most likely not even going to be investigated correctly. And they miss 6 months of visiting their children and their family. So these are some occurrences of abuse. We have Daddy Martin Martinez, who I mentioned earlier, Keith Turner, who you guys know well and good from this channel, who was an officer paralyzed in the Inmates lawsuit, and he was arrested on child molestation. He was recently convicted. Thank God. I was actually at his court date prior to him getting convicted at his jury selection date last July, and I will plop in a little video at the end of this about the Keith Turner situation. The last one is of food service coordinator at Lowell. This is a personal explanation from a girl that had to suffer at the hands of one of the officers. Just an excerpt of it. She said he also threatened to extend her prison sentence, writing up disciplinary reports that would cost her gain time, as I was stating before. Over time, they had sex at least 4 times, she said. I asked him why. I begged him, but that fueled him more. Then I didn't care. He twisted and manipulated me. I was scared and gullible. I did what he said because I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know what he was capable of. Ulrich's personal file shows that as far back as 2009, he exhibited inappropriate behavior by improperly touching women and making sexual comments. One time he led a group of women into the bubble, the area where the officers sit, and said earlier what I said before: roses are red, pickles are green, I love your legs and what's in between. And when fellow officer reported the utterance, he was given a 5-day suspension. The girl states that she's found little solace, but now she's drug-free. But sometimes she doesn't even want to be. She said this as she was weeping. When I did drugs, that was always the answer to my pain. But now I'm 30 and I have nothing. This man robbed her of her dignity and left her just a soul of what she once was. And it's so sad that officers are able to get away with this. This is silent protest for those who are silenced for speaking up. and emotional from that. That's Deborah from Change Comes Now that leads the protests, and these are actual girls that have been incarcerated. So we have current resource, and also I'm going to attach my opinion of them. Current resources that are available for the girls at Lowell are the PREA hotline, which is remedial due to limited phone use times, the prison's PREA compliance officer, which is remedial due to limited access to inmates based on scheduling, grievances, remedial due to possible retaliation and investigative shortcomings that put inmates at risk of further abuse, such as offending staff may be the only person able to report abuse to, and also the TIPS hotline, which is remedial due to limited phone use time as well. So here's some current positive resources that exist. We have Change Comes Now that assists those who have been impacted by the criminal legal system. Assist those who have been impacted by the criminal legal system through charitable services. The Gulf Coast Rape Crisis Center, which offers referrals, links, and resources for various traumatic instances, including sexual assault. It is available at prisons, but not often used. It has been the actual reporting entity for Lowell C.I for the past 2 years, and they've only received a total of 6 calls. So that's remedial in the fact that it's not used, but it could be very, very positive if they actually took the time to let inmates know that it's there, because I never even heard about that while I was there. We also have the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, which also works with Change Comes Now often. And they help build foundational stepping stones to help end incarceration of women and girls through local organizing, political education, and other various campaigns. The investigation of Lowell C.I also mentions that anyone outside of the facility, be it legal team, family, or anyone else, would be beneficial for the individual. So what's the solution? There's no specific solution for the constant abuse taking place at Lowell C.I, but rather multiple solutions to internal problems. Number one, we have staffing and training. Lowell C.I has a severe staffing shortage that makes it difficult to ensure safety to inmates. Money from paid suspension should be redirected to overtime bonuses. We need increased camera coverage. The main way to reduce sexual assault in this specific prison is to have overlooked areas monitored by cameras. The investigation noted that this has been recommended several times to no avail. And we also need accountability for officers. There are several instances where officers under investigation stop showing up to work, so they get fired for that, or they resign to deflect responsibility. Investigations need to be monitored and completed on a regular basis. We would start by putting $1,000 into training programs for sexual harassment, which is about $40 per employee. We would try to put them at the ones for the officers that are most in contact with inmates. Filing reports and crisis intervention classes, which are free through the Florida Certification Board. $2,000 to provide extra cameras in insufficiently covered areas, plus a dedicated team to monitor these angles. And $3,000 for staffing, to be dispersed through contracted hiring bonuses to increase amount of staff to help reduce to help reduce victims being overseen by their offenders. So there's an obvious staffing shortage at Lowell, so trying to sign on hiring bonuses for qualified individuals would be something that would be beneficial to make sure that if something does happen to these girls, that they have someone other to report to than the perp. So I hope that you have enjoyed my final. These are not adequate numbers, by the way. We would obviously need a lot more money than that. But it's somewhere to start. A lot of people do talk about the negative things, but they don't talk what solutions are and how we can help these girls. They just like to say all the negative things that go on. So what's your idea? What's something that we can do to help these inmates, the girls and the individuals? I don't even like to say inmates. What's something that we could do to help the girls that can't speak for themselves right now, and to help the men that are suffering through violence and aren't getting taken seriously because they're men? That toxic masculinity, in a sense, especially in jail. People are allowed to have emotions, and they're allowed to feel for themselves, and they're allowed to fend for themselves, even if they've committed a crime and are serving the time for it. They're still allowed to have a sense of identity and dignity. So what can we do to make that happen? Let me know, please. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe, please, to Formidable Felons. Formidable_felon on Instagram. Formidable Felons on Facebook. Subscribe here, please.